So just as introduction, my name is Ken Workin. If I haven't spoken to you before, I'm part of the executive team within Access E11, and my goal here is to really share with you some of the things that we have learned, but also get feedback from you of what you would like to understand better, and ultimately tell you about features that maybe you haven't fully embraced or aren't fully comfortable with, and to try to bridge that gap a little bit. So this is going to be a very narrow targeted session. It probably won't take the full hour, so there'll be lots of time for Q&A at the end. We are going to start doing more of these on a monthly basis where we have narrower subjects where we can go a little bit deeper rather than the high level overview that we've been doing in the past. So hopefully you can find this valuable for yourselves. But in terms of what we mean by the intake process and how you bring that information in. We really have, first of all, I guess from a terminology perspective, within Access E11, we use the term inbound channel a lot, and channels are really different mechanisms that your residents can use to enter information into the system, either directly or through staff members. So right now within the platform, there are really three different inbound channels. We are continuing to expand that, so watch this space. It is likely that we will be supporting additional inbound channels in the near future, particularly SMS, but that is still being developed right now, but should be out before the end of the year. Today, really, there's three mechanisms. The first is through email. So if your residents contact you today with a regular email channel, we can take that email and use it to populate a case within our system and automate the communication. So generally speaking, this is the easiest. It doesn't really require any IT configuration, doesn't require any changes to your existing system. You just have to set up our system to enable inbound email channels. And I will show you how to do that as a part of this. So that will be sort of step one. Step two is, or the second mechanism is the web form. Some people have adopted it, but haven't really had a lot of transition for their residents to start using it. Some people have been very effective, and I'll show you that and some of the things that made them effective and how you can best use your web form. The benefit of the web form is really twofold. One is from a resident's perspective. Oftentimes, if they are given a form, they believe they're getting better service, even when they're not really getting service directly from a person. So similar to banks and the adoption of ATM, being able to do self-serve is viewed to be almost table stakes, but viewed to be better service. They can also be used to contact the city anytime. So if there's a noise violation or an issue that they want to make you aware of, they can provide that information to you regardless of whether there's someone answering the phones or not. When it's effectively used and effectively promoted, it really does tremendously reduce the call volumes for your clerks or front desk staff or call center agents, depending on how you're configured. But training your residents to use either email or web form can result in fairly substantial cost savings for yourselves. And then the last way is through the web app itself. So this is using the actual Access E11 web page use as staff. And this is more dealing with things like if they call you or do a walk-in, how does your staff effectively use the application to put that information in? And I'll talk a little bit more around intake templates and ways that you can make that more efficient for your staff as well. In terms of adoption, a bit of a eye chart here, I apologize, but what you're looking at is a cross section of our customers. So each line represents a set of Access E11 customers in our system. And then the three forms of intake and how well they've relatively been adopted. So you can see I actually sorted this by the use of web form. So there's about 50% of the customers that are using the web form and about 50% that aren't using it at all. Of the 50% that are using it, you can see the percentage of cases that are created through it varies tremendously. And as I looked at this information, the people on the left-hand side, municipalities and local governments on the left-hand side that really adopted the web form, they had some best practices that I wanted to share with you in terms of what they were able to do. But you can see, and spoiler alert here, I guess, because I'm going to talk about them. This far left-hand bar, so the people who win the Training of the Residents Award goes to Hastings Highlands. So as a municipality, they have been very effective and very successful at training their citizens to use their web form more than calling in or emailing or anything else. So they have been very effective. We'll share that. And there are a lot of folks that you can see in the absence of using digital intake templates. Imagine all of the red bars here require your effort to answer the phone, to type in the information, and to actually bring the case into the Access E11 platform. If you can migrate them to blue, your workload goes down to the point of just having to forward in an email. If you can go to green, then you don't even have to be involved. So there are varying stages of savings that are possible. And short of Hastings Highlands, I think there's room for improvement for just about all of our customer base, which is why we're doing this presentation today. Okay, so in terms of what does it take to actually set up a proper business or proper casework intake process, there's a few things that you need to do. One is, you have to set up the system so that it is intuitive enough and straightforward enough and trained enough that people can use it without feeling like they need to speak with a person. So we'll go into that a little bit on how to set up the system. Then you really need to also focus on resident awareness and training. So how do you make sure that they know how to find it, that it's easy to find, that they know about it, and that they should use it? And then ultimately, it's also about how do you figure out where to, how do you get staff to adopt it? The staff adoption is really about, again, making it as straightforward and as simple and as broadly used as possible so that all the information gets in and that the best practices can continue to evolve over time. So starting with step one, I did want to talk about the different ways that you can roll out the web form in order to make it really successful. So I'm going to start with Hastings Highlands because they have been tremendously successful. So I'm going to this is the Hastings Highlands website. So this is their standard website. And what you'll see is if you go into their system and say, what is our customer service management strategy? They have done a really, really great job of educating their residents on what they're trying to achieve by adopting this type of system and how they should expect to use the system. So Hastings Highlands has done a good job of telling them what they can do on each of these different things. And then they've also, so you can use this as an example. If you want to go to their website, you can find it. But I think it is very valuable to have this summary of what you can do, what you can expect. So they talk here about the emails that they will be receiving as residents and what types of information they should be putting into the system based on the issues that they are potentially dealing with. Okay, so then they also have lots of ways to provide feedback, lots of ways to do their policies, how they're doing the corporate service policies, etc. So this type of visibility, I think, is really key in making residents feel comfortable and confident that they are going to get good service if they follow the instructions as they're put forward. The other thing that they've done is I'm just going to bring up here an email from the administrative assistant, Kim, who, if you're interested, we did a whole webinar with her on her experience, and we're happy to share that with anyone on the call where you can hear firsthand from Kim what they've done, how it worked, etc. So I actually sent an email into Kim, and this is what we get back from her when I send an email to her system directly. So first of all, first thing she can do, you'll see here throughout their email, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different places that they say, click here to fill out the form. So this is their default. Anytime you send something into their system, they're like, please go to the web page and submit this thing through a web page. They've also on there, I guess I don't have it here. Oh, I do have it here. They also talk about their service targets and their privacy policy, etc. So it really is a wonderful multi-channel strategy for them that they have used to educate their residents. Another example of that, which I'll go to, city of Lauderhill in Florida, Fort Lauderdale in Florida. They've taken a very similar approach. You can see on their main page, they've integrated the customer service request icon directly into their environment. If you click on this, you get to what is their Lauderhill Listens form, which is I think a wonderful choice of language that they're using to describe how they are providing this to their residents. And they've also got a really good, if you go into their contact us page, they've done, I think, a really nice job of amplifying the value that residents get from the web form. So again, this is all about how do I train my residents on what to do. They've got a QR code that anyone can take a picture of. They can post this anywhere they like, and residents can use their phones. In fact, if you use this as a QR code, you'll see how well you're able to very quickly get to the web form based on the QR code that they've created. So they did the work up front and really made it simple for residents to access the form, to understand the benefits of it, as well as give them easy access to it through the QR code that they can just simply click on. They don't need to, or take a picture of. They don't need to know about the website and where to go to. And the benefit of having something like this is you can actually print it out and post it in, town halls, in any community buildings, in any parks and rec setting where you want to have the ability for residents to communicate with you. This allows them to do so very, very quickly and easily without having to install anything on their phones or go to websites or anything else. It's all from a QR code. So I think in terms of best practices and highlighting things, this is really, best practices on what to do here. As a way to assist you in doing that, we are also providing from Access E11, we've added a new section to our support page. So if you go to support.net4.com, we've actually added rollout materials as well. So whether that's informing the internal team that that you're deploying Access E11, if you want to do a press release, or if you want to do that citizen flyer, we've got some of those, that City Listens type information available for you to download, modify to your specific municipality's content, and then ultimately do similar to what Fort Lauderdale did or Lauderhill did in promoting that wherever you feel your citizens would be benefited by learning about it. So this can be on your social media page, it can be printed and posted in public spaces, etc. So what I'm going to do now then is start to talk about how do I set up the system. So if I go back into my PowerPoint here, I'm going to be focused more on the intake templates, the email templates, web form, and inbound channels. So let's start there. The one thing, because I won't probably have time to go into it in full detail, but on the support page, there is in fact a video instruction on how to create inbound channels. Might be beneficial for folks to review and get a summary of after the call today. But let me start with describing what email inbound channels are, given that 50% of the people on the call said, what the heck is this? So where all of the configuration for these inbound channels live is if you go under the casework module or the casework dashboard, at the top here, there's a tab called Case Office Administration. You do need to be an office administrator to see this tab. So if you don't see it on your login, it may be that you don't have the credentials. So in that case, you'll either have to request those credentials or request that your current office administrator does this work on your behalf. But if I go here, there's a few places where all of this intake information lives. The first is the templates themselves. So this is where you define what information you want to bring into the system based on the type of case that it is. Then we have the ability to configure emails that are sent to residents. And then down here, third from the bottom, you'll see this thing called channels. And this is really where you start to define all the different inbound channels and how you want them to behave. Email channels are at the top, and email channels are included. So there's no extra fee for any of this. And the email channel is really designed to give you an email address on the system that you can forward emails that you get from your residents and have them automatically created as cases in our system. So you can see here, for example, animal services, which is a simple one for us. I'm just going to open it up and show you what that looks like. But what you do is you create an email address on the system that's unique to your municipality. So you'll have probably here, this will be app.accesse11.com or accesse11.cloud or citizenissues.cloud, depending on how you've set that up. Just to let you know, by default, this button is unchecked. But what this setting allows you to do, this incoming email, by default, the only people that can send emails to this email address are staff members in your case office. So we will only allow cases to be created from authorized agents. So if you're sending it from an email address other than your municipal staff email address, it likely will not be created. You can change that so that it will accept all incoming calls or all incoming emails, but we sort of recommend against this because it does allow the system to be exposed to the chance for fraud or spam. If you leave this out, no one can spam you. The only emails that the system will accept are ones from your case office. Okay. The second thing you do, which is the main purpose of the different email channels, is a mapping of the email address to a specific category automatically. So this is where you decide this email, I want to be flagged with this type of case. Okay, so for example, you could set this up as waste. I'm not going to change any of these. And then the category would be waste, waste and recycling. So if I sent an email to this email address, it would be automatically set up to have this category assigned to it. You can also assign staff members to be assigned to this directly. This is a little bit more of a legacy because now we can also do assignment at the category level. So waste and recycling probably has its own default assignees. But if, for example, you wanted somebody to triage all of the web form or email system cases that came in, and then you would reassign them or reassign a category based on them, you can do that here as well. And what we would recommend in that case is you create an email here, which would be, general inquiry or something to that effect. And you make this into a generic maybe it's complaints, and you have somebody who is going to be responsible for responding to or assigning the appropriate complaint to the right category. So this makes it really easy to get systems in, but then you have to use the dashboard or your internal dashboard to actually assign it to the appropriate category and appropriate assignees, or you can set up multiple email addresses. So again, as an example here, you can see we've set up one email address for animal services, a different one for facilities, a different one for complaints, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, just going back into this again, a couple of other things that we can do here in terms of configuration is decide what do you want to do with the resident who sent you the email. So again, by default, what we do is search the database right now for a contact or a resident that is based on the original email. And if we don't find them in the system, we create one. We can also set it up that it'll search contacts, and if it doesn't find one, rather than creating it, it gets set up to an anonymous, or this is essentially an anonymous account. Or you can say, you know what, I never want to store any of my residents' emails. I want everything to be anonymous. Then you can just keep creating the cases always with an anonymous contact. So you're never associating it with a resident. Okay, so we do allow you to not store any of the contact details if that's your choice. And then similarly, you can also decide whether or not you want to send emails to staff based on things coming in through the web form or through an email channel. Okay, let me show you how that works if you haven't seen this before. So if I go into my folder here, so this is my residential inbox. So this is everywhere that I've got my fictitious residents sending me emails about their concerns. I've also got my most infamous resident here, Jimmy Crack Corn, that I use to actually submit these issues. So I'm just going to go into the sent items here, and I'm going to resend this email, which is essentially there's a stray dog in Brentwood Park. So this is me as a resident. I'm sending this into my city web inbox, or sorry, my city's email general inbox, and I hit send. So that's the resident. He sends an email into the system. Now, if I go back into the actual system itself and wait for the interweb to deliver, there we go. So you can see here, I got the email from James about this. There is an attachment on it, so you can see there is in fact a stray dog, etc. So the way we manage creating these inbound channels or using email inbound channels is you forward this whole email, so we don't have to do any integration with your Outlook system. We don't have to have our own email on your environment. You set up an inbound channel and then you send this email to it. So this one is a stray dog issue. So if I go back to my system here, what I'm going to do is send it to this email address, because this is my animal services email address that I set up. So this is my inbound channel for email. So if I go back to the actual email itself, all I have to do is forward this email to that inbound channel that I created on the system, and I can just hit send. Okay, so that's all I need to do is that. And don't need to type anything in, don't need to put any text. It will essentially strip out the attachment, strip out the original content, look for James Crackhorn in the database. If they exist, it will add them, add this case to them. If they don't exist, it will create them automatically and add them, and it will assign the category that is specific to the email address that I sent it into. So the inbound channel email address. Okay, once that's all done, the system, it processes emails about every minute. So the email will be created, the case will be created on our system, and emails will be sent to both the resident as well as any staff members that have been assigned. So if I go back now to the inbound channel, or if I go back, sorry, to the case office system and just look at my cases, I'm just going to look at new this week here. And you'll see here is that animal services email. So you can look at the source. Source came in from email. And if I open that up, what you'll get is the contact. So it did find Jimmy Crackcorn in our system, so it assigned it to him. By default, it uses their address. So I might need to go in here and say, oh, it's actually in Brantwood Park. I know that's in Brantwood Park. I'm going to move that down here and say that it's in Brantwood Park. You'll also notice that it was assigned to the appropriate staff member. So right now within Animal Services, that's Ken Workin is assigned to Animal Services. The follow-up date was set. The due date was set, all based on criteria of the category. You'll see the way we handle email inbound is we strip out the original email and add it as a note. So the email that came from the resident will be added into our system as a note. The attachments will be stripped out of the email, but added as separate attachments so that you can handle them in the same way you do any other attachment with a case. But the benefit of this approach is, as intake personnel yourselves, you do not have to retype anything. You don't have to assign it. You don't have to put any information into the system. All you have to do is forward it. So it's all about reducing the amount of time and effort that it takes for you to get information from wherever the resident provided it to you, but getting it into the system with as little effort as possible. So that's how we manage email channels. The web forms can also be configured. There's a slight difference in that we at Access E11 will need to create the original URL. So once we've got the URL created, that's when you can start to customize it. And we do ask as a part of our intake process for things like logos and color schemes and cascading style sheet formatting, font type stuff. But you can in fact configure some things on your channel as well. The other thing I'll let you know, depending on when you adopted your web form, and I did see that some of you, or about 50%, have a web form. We have created and purchased a domain called citizenrequests.online. And if you are interested in making it seem more specific to your municipality, you can set up we can give you a custom URL that would be, for example, hastings.citizenrequests.online, and make it less about For Action or Access E11, depending on when you came on board. We do actually have URLs now that we can provide you much more customized URLs that, again, make it more consistent and that your residents don't feel like they're leaving your site, but they're doing your citizen request infrastructure. But once the web form is there, you can see what is able to be configured here. So if I bring up this, this is now the configuration for the web form. It looks very similar to the configuration of the email. So this was the email one. So you can see the email address, etc. But the web form is similar, but a little bit different. So if I go in here and configure it, the first is it will give you the list of available URLs that we have set up on your behalf. So as you ask us to create URLs, we will put them here and they will show up as a selectable item for you to choose. Then we can say, in terms of the specific form itself, You can configure it to have a default category, which means if the user doesn't enter anything into the system, this will be the category that's used. You can also choose which categories are exposed to the residents as a way to keep things simpler for them to fill out. So for example, you can see here, I've got 6 of my high level departments, each which would have the things underneath them. But I can say, you know what, I don't want to use public works or waste and recycling. I don't want that to be available for them. And I also don't want to default assign anyone. I can, if I save this, I guess I'll go through the last bit here. But contact association, similar to email, we can choose whether to make them provide an email. So this first option here is whether or not we are going to send them a verify email. What this does from a behavior perspective is when they hit submit on their form, whatever email address they put into their form, we send an email to that address with a number that they have to enter before we will actually allow them to create a case. The benefit of this is that you can guarantee that whoever is submitting the form does in fact have a real email address. They could create a Gmail one or whatever else. But if you're getting a lot of fraudulent or fake cases through your web form, this is something that you may want to turn on. The flip side of it, since this is sort of a best practices discussion, the downside of turning this on is it does add a layer of complexity and friction for your residents to actually submit tickets. When they hit submit, they have to go onto their inbox, find the email that we just sent them, find the number, put it back in the form and hit submit. So what we have found is that when people did this from the get-go, they got some sort of negative feedback from their residents that it was quite complicated, particularly elderly folks. So we generally recommend not forcing that verification step unless you're starting to see a lot of fraudulent emails or people pretending to be somebody they're not, etc. And again, in a similar way to email, we can always make these default to an anonymous. So this is just an anonymous web form contact. We can say, look for it, and if they exist, use them. But if they don't exist, then use the default one. That's as a way to prevent duplications. Or the more common and what we would recommend from a best practices perspective is add the contact into the system if it doesn't already exist there. And then you can start to have that relationship with your residents and understand what cases they've created over time and in what way, etc. So we think that this is really valuable for you to get more information on who is saying what within your community, but we also appreciate sometimes you just want to keep it fully anonymous, easily supported. So just to show you what you get with this, because I will, there was a few folks that didn't have the web form yet. So if I go into the web form, and then I'll probably stop at this point and leave it open for questions. So this is our default web form that goes into our demo system. You can see here the categories were the same as the categories that I was showing there. If I go back, just to sort of show you, sorry, if I go back to this again and say, you know what, I don't want healthcare and I don't want code violations. I don't want anything except animal services, waste and recycling, and public works. So as soon as I save this, and I go back to my, it's not going to update it until I refresh. So you'll see here are all the categories. If I refresh my page now and it reloads, now what you'll see is there's only these 3 categories. They're all still searchable. I can also make any of the subcategories visible, but you can see that you can simplify the citizen form to be as few categories as you would like. So if you go back to our categories, you can see in our demo system, we have, what is that, probably 30 different potential departments. within each of them. We have many, many, many. If I tried to put this on a web form, all in one form, I think it would be very, very confusing for residents to find what they're looking for. So rather than that, what we've also seen as a best practice is sometimes even just breaking down the forms into either one or two departments and then having multiple forms. So from your homepage, you can go in. So as an example, if I go to Arm Prior, they've got some feedback and requests for service that you can go to as well, but they've got a limited number of categories that they have shown on their website, and they actually had multiple forms with limited number of categories per form, and you could have a different logo for Public Works, a different logo for Parks and Rec, but make it very tailored to the specific type of issue that is being submitted and simplified so that the residents don't have to wade through all the different sorts of issues that it could be. So that's how you configure the specific categories that are there. And you'll notice, because I picked a department, it includes all of the ones below it, but I can also include, you know, a subcategory as well. The portal itself, if you're not familiar with it, if I go in here now and fill it out, the resident goes in, fills out the information on here. We do recommend making them give you at least one piece of data to contact them on. We prefer to make email address mandatory for two reasons. One is it allows you to communicate status and communicate updates, and also have that information in your CRM now. If you want to do things like newsletters or public bulletins, this is a great way to capture some information on your residents to make it easier to contact them in the future. It's also, if they have business with you, which this is, gives you an ability from a privacy perspective to collect this information in a way that is consistent with the privacy laws. But the residents can fill out the information themselves with an intake template form. They can do it attachments, etc. But the reason I wanted to show you this page is I do think that it's very important, if you're rolling out a web form, to also look at creating these intake templates for your residents so that you can tell them what information you need. They can type it all in. It reduces the amount of effort you have to do. It reduces the amount of back and forth with the resident in order to collect the information that you require in order to do the work. The other thing that you can do, if I didn't get rid of it here, the reason I'm doing this is you can also use these intake templates to provide real-time information to your residents, letting them know before they submit an issue that you're aware of the issue or aware of the problem. So if they're, you know, talking about a street light down, you can go in and very quickly use this as a way to provide real-time communication based on issue type as well. So let me show you how we do that. So you can see this one is all about water mains and water issues, but it does provide you the opportunity to create intake templates that ensure that the resident knows what information they need to collect. And you can have in here URLs of forms that they need to fill out, sign, and attach, etc. But let me show you how you set that up, because it is a very powerful piece of the technology that right now is fairly underutilized by a lot of our customers. So if I go into the system, the intake templates themselves are very easy to create. So if I go into that water quality one, I'll just sort of show all of these here. So you can see we've created on our demo system a lot of examples. But if I go into the water issue one that I just went into, here's where I can say the real time. So I could put a date on this. That's all you need to do to provide real-time communications to your residents that you are aware of an issue and that you're working on it. Obviously, all the other intake template is about just making sure you're capturing the right information. So in order to set this up, So just to go back and show you again how we got here. So case office administration, case intake templates, then you can define your intake template. How you actually marry that to a specific category is done in the category area of the case office administration. So here, if I want to manage what intake template is used for that category, I just need to find that category. So here's my water quality, and then I hit the edit button here. And this is where I configure what information gets shared with the resident based on this type of case. So the case type, issue type is water quality. This is where I can define my due dates, my follow-up dates, who gets assigned to it. So this is how you automatically assign the user. But you can say here, here's the case intake template, and that's that water issue. So that's the one that we just worked on. And the benefit of this is anything you set up here will always be shown on the web form. You can, in fact, also create emails to the resident that are specific to a category type. So you could, in fact, have a different template for Parks and Rec as you do for water management or for public works or for bylaw / case enforcement, whatever. So if you want to have different emails that you use to interact with residents, all of that is achievable here. Okay, so that's really how you create a intake template. Then you assign it to a case category, and then it essentially gets manifested as this information on the web form.